In the book of Daniel, in chapter 8, verse 5, it says, "And as I was considering, suddenly a male goat came from the west, across the surface of the whole earth, without touching the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes." Now, who is this goat, and what is this notable horn between his eyes? If only the New King James would tell me, if only there was some sort of a marginal note or something telling me who this is talking about. Well, there's this other Bible. It's called the Amplified Bible. The Amplified Bible, AMP. And in this Bible, it's a little bit more descriptive. It says in Daniel chapter 8, "In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a second vision appeared to me, Daniel. This was 2 years after the one that first appeared to me. I looked in the vision, and it seemed that I was in the citadel of Susa, the capital of Persia, which is in the province of Elam. And I looked in the vision, and I saw myself by the Ulai Canal. Then I raised my eyes and looked, and behold, there in front of the canal stood a lone ram, the Medo-Persian Empire, which had 2 horns. The 2 horns were high, but the one, Persia, was higher than the other, Media, and the higher one came up last. I saw the ram, Medo-Persia, charging westward and northward and southward. No beast could stand before him, nor was there anyone who could rescue anything from his power. But he did as he pleased and magnified himself. As I was observing this, behold, a male goat, Greece, was coming from the west, rushing across the face of the whole earth, without touching the ground. And the goat had a conspicuous and remarkable horn, Alexander the Great, between his eyes." And then it goes on. And it says, "He came up to the ram that had the 2 horns, which I had seen standing in front of the canal, and charged at him in the fury of his power and wrath. In my vision I saw him come close to the ram, Medo-Persia, and he was filled with rage toward him. And the goat, Greece, struck the ram and shattered his 2 horns. And the ram had no strength to stand before him. So the goat threw him to the ground and trampled on him, and there was no one who could rescue the ram from his power. Then the male goat magnified himself exceedingly, and when he was young and strong, the great horn, Alexander, was suddenly broken, and in its place there came up 4 prominent horns, among whom the kingdom was divided, one toward each of the 4 winds of heaven." Now it talks about the little horn, and it says, "Out of one of them, Antiochus IV Epiphanes, came forth a rather small horn, but one of irreverent presumption and profane pride, which grew exceedingly powerful toward the south, toward the east, toward the beautiful land, Israel. And in my vision this horn grew up to the host of heaven, and caused some of the hosts and some of the stars to fall to the earth, and it trampled on them. Indeed, it magnified itself to be equal with the commander of the host of heaven, and it took away from him the daily sacrifice, burnt offering, and the place of his sanctuary was thrown down and profaned. Because of the transgression of God's people, their irreverence and ungodliness, the host will be given over to the wicked horn, along with the regular sacrifice, and the righteousness and truth will be flung to the ground, and the horn will do as it pleases by divine permission and prosper. Then I heard a holy one, the angel, speaking. Another holy one said to the one who was speaking, How much time will be required to complete the vision regarding the regular sacrifice, the transgression that brings horror, and the trampling underfoot of both the sanctuary and of the host of the people? He said to me, For 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the sanctuary will be cleansed and properly restored. When I, Daniel, had seen the vision, I sought to understand it. Then behold, standing before me was one who looked like a man. And I heard the voice of a man between the banks of the Ulai, which called out and said, Gabriel, give this man Daniel an understanding of the vision. So he came near where I was standing. And when he came, I was frightened and fell face downward. But he said to me, Understand, Son of Man, that the fulfillment of the vision pertains to events that will occur in the time of the end. Now as he, Gabriel, was speaking with me, I drifted into a deep sleep of unconsciousness, with my face to the ground, but he touched me and made me stand where I had stood before. He said, Behold, I am going to let you know what will happen during the final time of the indignation and wrath of God upon the ungodly, for it concerns the appointed time of the end. The ram's identity. The ram which you saw with the two horns represents the kings of Media and Persia. The shaggy, rough-coated male goat represents the kingdom of Greece, and the great horn between his eyes is the first king. Regarding the shattered horn and the 4 others that arose in his place, 4 kingdoms will arise from his, Alexander's, nation, although not with his power and heritage. At the latter period of their reign, when the transgressors have finished, a king will rise, insolent and skilled in intrigue and cunning. His power will be mighty, but not by his own power. And he will corrupt and destroy in an astonishing manner, and he will prosper and do exactly as he wills. He shall corrupt and destroy mighty men and the holy people, and through his shrewdness he will cause deceit to succeed by his hand. He will magnify himself in his mind. He will corrupt and destroy many who enjoy a false sense of security. He will also stand up and oppose the Prince of Princes, but he will be broken, and that by no human hand, but by the hand of God. The vision of the evenings and of the mornings which has been told to you is true, but keep the vision a secret, for it has to do with many days in the now distant future. And I, Daniel, was exhausted and sick for several days. Afterward I got up and continued with the king's business, but I was astounded at the vision, and there was no one who could explain it. Now, later on, in Daniel chapter 11, it goes a little further into this. See, that's Daniel chapter 10. Where's 11 at? Yeah, Daniel chapter 11 goes a little bit further into this. It says, Also I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, I, Gabriel, arose to be an encouragement and a protection for him. Oh, this is Gabriel talking to Daniel. And now I will tell you the truth. Behold, 3 more kings are going to arise in Persia, then a 4th will become far richer than all of them. When he becomes strong through his riches, he will stir up the whole empire against the realm of Greece. I don't know why they call it a realm. Why not call it a kingdom? Anyway, then a mighty, warlike, threatening king will arise, who will rule with great authority and do as he pleases. But as soon as he, Alexander, has risen, his kingdom will be broken by his death and divided toward the 4 winds of heaven, the north, south, east, and west, but not to his descendants, nor according to the Grecian authority with which he ruled. For his kingdom will be torn out and uprooted and given to his 4 generals, to the exclusion of these. Then the king of the south, Egypt, will be strong, along with one of his princes who will be stronger than he, and have dominance over him. His domain will be a great dominion. After some years, the Syrian king of the north and the Egyptian king of the south will make an alliance. The daughter, Bernice, of the king of the south, will come to the king of the north to make an equitable and peaceful agreement, marriage. But she will not retain the power of her position, nor will he retain his power. She will be handed over with her attendants and her father as well as he who supported her in those times. But out of a branch of her familial roots will one, her brother, Ptolemy III, Euergetes I, arise in his place, and he will come against the Syrian army and enter the fortress of the king of the north, and he will deal with them and will prevail. Also, he will carry off to Egypt their Syrian gods with their cast images and their precious and costly treasure of silver and of gold, and he will refrain from waging war against the king of the north for some years. And the king of the north will come into the realm of the king of the south, but he will retreat to his own country, badly defeated. His sons will prepare for battle and assemble a great multitude of great forces, which will keep on coming and overflow the land and pass through, so that they may again wage war as far as his fortress. The king of the south, Ptolemy the fourth, Philopator of Egypt. By the way, Philopator means he loves his father. Philo means love, and Pator means father. There's also another guy named Philomator, which means he loves his mommy. Anyway, the king of the south, Ptolemy the fourth, Philopator of Egypt, will be enraged and go out and fight with the king of the north, Antiochus the third, the great, and the Syrian king will raise a great multitude army, but the multitude shall be given into the hand of the Egyptian king. When the multitude army is captured and carried away, the heart of the Egyptian king will be proud and arrogant, and will cause tens of thousands to fall, but he will not prevail. For the king of the north will again raise a multitude army greater than the one before, and after several years he will advance with a great army and substantial equipment. In those times many will rise up against the king of the south of Egypt. Also the violent men among your own people will arise in order to fulfill the earlier visions, but they will fail. Then the king of the north, Syria, will come and build up siege ramps and capture a well-fortified city. The forces of the south will not stand their ground, not even the finest troops, for there will be no strength to stand against the Syrian king. But he, Syria, who comes against him, Egypt, will do exactly as he pleases, and no one will be able to stand against him. He, Antiochus III, the Great, will also stay for a time in the beautiful and glorious land of Israel, with destruction in his hand. He will be determined to come with the power of his entire kingdom and propose equitable conditions and terms of peace, which he will put into effect by making an agreement with the king of the south. He will also give him his daughter, Cleopatra I, in an attempt to overthrow the kingdom, but it will not succeed or be to his advantage. After this, he, Antiochus III, the Great, king of Syria, will turn his attention to the islands and coastlands and capture many of them. But a commander, Lucius Scipio Asiaticus of Rome, will put an end to his aggression towards Rome's territorial interests. In fact, he will repay his insolence and return his audacity back upon him. Then he will turn back toward the fortresses of his own land, of Syria, but he will stumble and fall and not be found. Then, in his place, his eldest son, Seleucus IV, Philopator, will arise, who will send an oppressor through the jewel of his kingdom. Yet with few days he will be shattered, though not in anger nor in battle. And in his place in Syria will arise a despicable and despised person, to whom royal majesty and the honor of kingship And in his place in Syria will arise a despicable and despised person, to whom royal majesty and the honor of kingship have not been conferred, but he will come without warning in a time of tranquility and seize the kingdom by intrigue. The overwhelming forces of the invading armies of Egypt will be flooded away before him and smashed, and also the prince of the covenant will be smashed. After an alliance is made with him, he will work deceitfully, and he will go up and gain power with a small force of people. In a time of tranquility, without warning, he will enter the most productive and richest parts of the kingdom of Egypt. And what? And he will accomplish that which his fathers never did, nor his fathers' fathers. He will distribute plunder, spoil. He will distribute plunder, spoil, and goods among them. He will devise plans against the strongholds, but only for a time decreed by God. He will stir up his strength and courage against his former Egyptian ally, the king of the south, Ptolemy the sixth, with the great army. So the king of the south will prepare an extremely great and powerful army to wage war, but he will not stand, for schemes will be devised against him. Yes, those who eat his fine food will betray and destroy him, Ptolemy the sixth, and his army will be swept away, and many will fall down slain. And as for both of these kings, their hearts will be set on doing evil. They will speak lies over the same table, but it will not succeed, for the end is yet to come at the appointed time. Verse 28, Then he, Antiochus the fourth Epiphanes. This is the enemy in the Hanukkah story. This is who Maccabees talks about. Daniel chapter 11 is prophesying. This is Daniel chapter 11, prophesying about Antiochus Epiphanes from Maccabees. Then he, Antiochus the fourth Epiphanes, will return to his land with great treasure, plunder, and his heart will be set against the Holy Covenant, and he will take action and return to his own land, Syria. At the appointed time by God, he will return and come into the south, but his last time will not be successful, as were the previous invasions of Egypt. For ships of Cyprus and Roman hands will come against him. Therefore he will be discouraged and turn back to Israel and carry out his rage against the Holy Covenant and take action, so he will return and show favoritism towards those Jews who abandon or break the Holy Covenant with God. This is what the Hanukkah story has to do with. Armed forces of his will arise in Jerusalem and defile and desecrate the sanctuary, the spiritual stronghold. Armed forces of his will arise in Jerusalem and defile and desecrate the sanctuary, the spiritual stronghold, and will do away with the regular sacrifice, that is, the daily burnt offering. And they will set up a pagan altar in the sanctuary, which is the abomination of desolation. With smooth words of flattery and praise, he will turn to godlessness those who are willing to disregard the Mosaic covenant. But the people who are spiritually mature, know their God, will display strength and take action. They who are wise and have spiritual insight among the people will instruct many and help them understand. Yet, for many days, some of them and their followers will fall by the sword and by flame, by captivity and by plunder. Now when they fall, they will receive a little help, and many will join with them in hypocrisy. Some of those who are spiritually wise and have insight will fall as martyrs, in order to refine, to purge, and to make those among God's people pure until the end time, because it is yet to come at the time appointed by God. Then the king, the Antichrist, okay, so now they're trying to tell you they're talking about the future now. Then the king, the Antichrist, will do exactly as he pleases. He will exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and will speak astounding and disgusting things against the God of gods, and he will prosper until the indignation is finished. Anyway, and it goes on, but you get the idea. Daniel chapter 11 is prophesying about all these Greek kings, Ptolemy, Cleopatra, Antiochus, and it's prophesying about things that literally take place in the books of 1st and 2nd Maccabees. And it all starts in Daniel chapter 8 with Alexander the Great defeating the Persians, and then the little horn, Antiochus Epiphanes, rises up. Yeah. That's the Amplified Bible. The Amplified Bible. So these guys seem to know what these prophecies are talking about. But a lot of people want to doubt it. And they want to say, no. Daniel chapter 8 isn't talking about Alexander. The little horn isn't Antiochus Epiphanes. No, it's talking about something else. Well, the creators of the Amplified Bible, they seem to know what it's talking about.